Hi, Eric. How are you? You're on mute. There you are.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. Good.
Yeah. Hi, Haley. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you, Professor Ryfe?
Good, good. Yeah. You working on your paper?
Yep,
All right. Well, let me know how I can help.
will do. Thank you.
Oh, there's Becky.
Mhm.
I don't see any animals, Becky. Hi, Kaisa.
I don't know where my cat is. She's usually right behind me.
Yeah. I know, right? My cat found a wasp in the house in my son's bedroom, and my daughter went in, and the cat had the wasp in his mouth, and then the wasp stung him on the nose.
Did he swell up?
Well, we didn't know. We've never had that before. He wasn't particularly happy. He got a big knot on his nose, but he didn't swell. We were very lucky because apparently they can have an adverse reaction, and that's not good.
I had a dog get stung by one before in his mouth, and the same thing happened. It really swelled up, but Benadryl helped.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. But he was not happy for the next 24 hours, but he did okay. Hi, Michaela. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Good.
I'm eating oops, oh, you can't even see it. The green screen. 1 second.
You have a nice green screen behind you.
Yeah, it's not really what my background looks like at all.
I'm
eating
people.
cereal though, so this is my
All right.
current
What kind
meal.
of cereal?
They're unpopular. It's the frosted mini wheats.
Okay.
Nobody likes those.
Not anymore, no. But it does have the frosting, so it has a lot of good sugar in it, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom would buy cereal, and then I would put like a cup of sugar on top of it, and so that there was this huge amount of sugar in the bowl at the end that I'd be able to eat. And that was the breakfast of champions. We'll wait here for another minute or so, let people come in. I know people wait until the very last minute. And Michaela, your online class is nearly finished, right? Your ASU online class?
Yep, it is. We are currently on a small break, but then we'll start up again full force on the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be good.
You enjoying the experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been hard, but it's been really good too.
Yeah, now that class was meant to be online, so
yeah.
has it been much different from your classes at Iowa that were online, Hi, Paul.
Hey, Paul. So what will be different is just how we move forward with the project, because News 21 is known for a lot of documentary style storytelling.
Yep.
So we're just trying to figure out what that will look like in a virtual space. So that's the difference. But the class itself, for me, it didn't change. But for the ASU students, it definitely did.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start here. I'm hoping we have people drop in as we go along. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, although I know we're all at home anyway. It's not like we were going anywhere. That's one good thing about meetings these days. Everyone shows up to our meetings because we're all in one place, and it's not that hard to, and it's fun to see people, right? Because we're so isolated. So if you don't know me, my name is David Ryfe, and I'm the director of the journalism school. Welcome to our town hall meeting. Becky and I thought to hold this meeting to do a couple of things. First of all, just to talk through what we anticipate the fall semester might look like. And we don't know exactly what that semester is going to look like any more than anyone else does, including people who are actually been tasked with working on that issue at the university level. But there are some things that we will know, or that we do know, that we can convey to you, because I know, that the end of the spring semester is coming. You're going to go away for the summer, and then at some point in June, July, you're going to get an email about what that semester is going to look like. So we'd like to prepare you for that. More specifically, we can provide you with more information about what the journalism school is going to do in preparation for the fall. And so what the second thing we want to do is just let you know what we're planning to do for the fall, what you can expect in your classes for the fall semester. And then finally, we want to answer any questions you have, and you must have a gazillion questions. I know your parents may have as many questions as you do about coming back for the fall semester. And so just addressing any concerns, any issues you may have. Partly what you can be doing in asking those questions is alerting us to issues that you're facing. We're all trying to strategize and prepare for the fall semester as well as we can, but we don't always know exactly what's happening in your world. And so if you can give us some insight into what's happening in your world, it'll help us prepare better to meet everyone's needs. And so that's kind of what we want to do over the next hour or so. I'd like to spend just 20 minutes talking about those first two issues, and then I'll open it up to conversation and have people ask questions. And I noticed that we have several other journalism faculty and staff here, and they can certainly help me answer questions when I don't have the answer. I often don't have the answer and have to go ask someone else. And so Paul Jensen is here, our internship and placement person. Anna Noonan is here, our advisor. Becky is here, the administrator of the school. And Kaisa Dalrymple is here. I saw her online, and she's a faculty member in the school and will be able to help us from the faculty's perspective about things that we're trying to accomplish. So let me just launch into it so that we give as much time as possible to your questions. What is the fall semester likely to look like? We don't know what it's exactly going to look like, but we have the contours of what it's likely to look like. Several features. The first feature is that it's likely to involve a hybrid style in your classes. And by that I mean, we have been told that it is likely that social distancing is going to be required on campus, at least in some environments, including classroom environments. And so we have been told to make our classes as hybrid, in other words, a mix of online and face-to-face elements as possible, in order to be flexible so that we can respond to whatever social distancing measures are actually put in place. What could these measures look like? These are just some examples. I don't know if these are going to be the ones that are actually used, but there are some examples that have been discussed. As an example, we may have classes that are over a certain size. Half the students come in on Tuesday face-to-face, and half the students come in on Thursday face-to-face. And then on your day when you're not coming in, you'll be using online elements of the class to keep up. Right? That's one example that could happen on campus. Right? So we've been directed to make our classes as hybrid as we possibly can. As I said, there's going to be social distancing measures in place. There'll likely be social distancing across the university, everything from dorms to libraries to eating places. There are going to be rules in place about how many people can congregate at what distance. There's Becky's cat. I knew the cat was coming. We're likely going to have some kind of testing being done on campus. How rigorous that testing is and what it exactly involves is a little unclear. But you could imagine things like temperature checks, routine temperature checks in the dorms. You could imagine actual testing for the virus when everyone arrives on campus, and tracing if we have hotspots open up, right? So there's likely going to be some kind of testing regime. And then we're all going to have to be flexible, because no one knows exactly what's going to happen when we bring tens of thousands of people together again in the fall. And what I mean by that, it may be necessary for us to change what we're doing over time in response to facts on the ground. So it's not impossible that we start in person and then we have to make a fully in person, and then we have to make adjustments as we go along, all the way to the continuum, all the way down the line of a continuum of everyone going off campus again. It just really depends on how the measures that they put in place up front work or not. If we experience a very significant cluster on campus, you can imagine that they would push everyone off campus again. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's something that could happen. And they're going to try to prevent that as much as they can with the mitigation measures they put in place. The final thing that I forgot to mention is that we're going to have a whole cleaning regime in facilities, everything from classrooms to dorms to offices. A cleaning regime is going to be put in place for everyone. And you can expect that we're likely going to be asked to wear masks in public settings, as we're having to do now in public settings already. These are things that are likely going to be put in place. They're expecting this first wave of the virus to be reduced over time by August, but they are also expecting to have other waves of the virus happen as we move forward. So you should, I mean, and in fact, I just saw an interesting article that modeled how these waves might look. One nice image I saw was that our recovery from this is likely to be like shark teeth, where we have this initial wave, and then we're going to have other waves along the way, and we're just going to have to adapt as these waves happen. Those waves are going to look different geographically, so they'll look different in Iowa than they do in New York, than they do in California, et cetera. So we really aren't quite sure what's going to happen at the back end. But all these elements that I've just described, some version of them are likely to be in place in the fall, and maybe even into the spring semester. Right? So those are some of the things that we can expect. So given that that's the description of what's likely to happen, here's what the journalism school is doing in response to what we've learned. And we're trying to be as aggressive as we can be to prepare so that we give you the most immersive, in-depth learning experience and communal experience of the school as we can. Right? And we have several months now to plan for this, unlike in the spring where we had 2 weeks. So we're hoping to do a lot better in the fall than we did in the spring. Okay, there are several things that the journalism school is doing. The first thing that we're doing has to do with tools. You know, there are a lot of our classes that involve various kinds of technologies, whether they're cameras or software or computers, etc. The first thing that we're doing is we're trying to ensure that we have a 1-to-1 ratio of toolkits for every student that needs a toolkit. Right, so we've been counting in our classes, all of our classes that use technology, how many students are in those classes. We need to make sure that we have cameras, audio equipment, video equipment, etc., in a backpack, if you want to use that term, that we could hand to each one of those students. So the first thing that we're doing is ensuring that we have enough toolkits for every student in every class, and we can just hand them to you on loan if at the beginning of the semester, so that if we have to go off campus, you'll have the tools necessary to do your work. We've learned in a survey that the kinds of technology you need are not only cameras and audio equipment and so on. Many of our students don't have computers or laptops available in their homes to be able to do the kind of work that we're asking them to do in our classes. Or if they have laptops, they have computers, those laptops and computers are not current enough to do the work that we're asking you to do in your classes. And so the other kind of technology we're trying to get up to speed on is laptops. We're not exactly sure how this is going to work because the university knows this is an issue globally. The university may purchase laptops, or the college may purchase laptops that can be checked out by students. If they're not doing it at a sufficient rate, the school has enough resources that we can purchase laptops to ensure that all our students have the right kind of computer to do the work necessary in their courses. And then the last piece we understood probably was going to be an issue, But when we surveyed our own students, we learned that it's actually a really big issue, and that's Wi-Fi connections, right? If you're doing media work, you're using a lot of files that have large data and require a lot of bandwidth. And a lot of our students don't have Wi-Fi connections sufficient enough really to do that work. And so the last piece of technology that we're working on is setting up a fund that can help students pay for Wi-Fi connections that are sufficient to do the work necessary. Now, this is of course an issue for our school and our students. It's also a university-wide issue because many of our students live in places where the Wi-Fi connections, when they go home, are not particularly good. So I know that the university is working on this fund as well. The school has been organizing. We're either going to do it ourselves or we're going to participate in a university-wide initiative to ensure that students have ample Wi-Fi, because none of this is going to work virtually if students don't have access to good Wi-Fi connections. So that's the tools part. We also know that our classes are going to have to be built in a hybrid model. And so we are thinking about where we can use online tools to add value to the educational experience you'll have, whether we're face-to-face to start in the semester or whether parts of our experience are online. So as an example, we've committed to something like 7 or 8 different policies among journalism faculty that we'll all follow in order to ensure that we're leaning forward as much as we can into the hybrid space. All our drop-in hours or office hours are going to be done virtually in journalism classes in the fall. So again, whether we're face-to-face or we're online, all of our faculty are going to use virtual office hours. We've learned that this is one of those ways of using online tools that actually works pretty well. We are hearing more from our students in virtual office hours than we did when we opened our door at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday and hoped that some student dropped by. Right, so we're going to do virtual drop-in hours. A lot of our classes invite students to do group work together. We are going to commit to doing all of that group work virtually. There are several different kinds of tools that are available us to do that. Everything from the Google set of tools to Microsoft Teams. I just noticed in my Google email account that there are these new tools for setting up meetings built right into the email system. So even if we're face-to-face, if you're doing group work in your classes, you're going to be assigned those into those groups and use virtual tools. Again, that's going to help the transition. If we were to have to transition to more online, the group work will not be affected one way or another. And by the way, when you go out into the work world, you're likely going to have to learn how to use those tools anyway, because you're going to be working with lots of different people across lots of different places. And as an example, Microsoft Teams, I've learned from a lot of our alumni, is a basic tool now that they use in their own offices. So it'll be good for you to learn how to use those tools regardless. And then a third thing that we're doing, where it makes sense, we are going to build instructional videos that can suffice as lectures in some of our classes. It's not necessary in some kinds of classes, but in other kinds of classes where we may have to have half the students on Tuesday come to class and half the students on Thursday come to class, it'll be helpful to have those videos in place. It's also good pedagogically to have those videos available. Even if the entire class can come both Tuesdays and Thursdays, we know that reinforcing important concepts is a good part of pedagogy. And having instructional videos that explain those concepts available, we can put them up on the icon sites so that I'm going to talk to you about a concept in freedom of expression, and then I'm going to refer you to the video that you can watch at your own pace. That's actually really good pedagogy anyway. And so having those videos available will enhance our classroom experience. All of our assignments are going to be flexibly developed. In other words, they're going to be able to be done in face-to-face settings or in remote settings, so that we don't have to make this hairpin transition. If we were to have to go online, all of a sudden we have to change all our assessments to make that happen. We're not going to have that happen this time. We're going to work to embed assignments that make sense in either modality right from the beginning, whether they're writing and reporting assignments or whether they're exams. We know that a good part of your experience in the journalism school is having access to professionals. We have people visiting our building every week, and they come into our classes and they have lunch with you and they talk to you about their professional lives, and this is a really important experience. Online can actually be a better tool for that in some ways than doing it face-to-face. And so we've set aside some money to encourage and incentivize faculty to bring as many professionals as they'd like into their classrooms. In the past, it was very hard to get our alumni who work at the New York Times, to get our alumni who work at National Geographic to come to Iowa City at a specified time. It'll be easier to introduce them into our classes virtually. And we're giving faculty a little bit of money so that we can give visitors honoraria to give them a little incentive to come. I think they'll come anyway, but it's not a bad idea to put aside a pot of money to do that. And so we're going to have even a more robust visitors program in the fall than we ordinarily would have. And on top of that, we are beginning to invent new virtual boot camps. We're hoping to have 2 to 3 boot camps in the fall semester. And these boot camps will be anywhere from 2 to 5 day workshops in which an instructor off campus, we're going to try to get the best expert we can on the issues that are being discussed from anywhere in the country to train you in specific skills that you learn about and play with in some of your classes, but they're so narrow that we don't devote an entire class to them. And my best example of a great boot camp that we're going to do is something like search engine optimization. When you go out in the work world, if you're a communication professional, you're going to have to know something about SEO and how to do it. And we can offer a class, 3 to 5 day class just on search engine optimization. And you can get trained in that skill by someone who's a high-end person in that area. And we can do it all virtually. Right? So we're going to start running virtual boot camps in the fall. And I'm hoping to stand up at least 3 of them for the fall semester. Finally, one of the things that we've heard from you is that you really miss the sense of community in the school. Right? That you went home and now you're in your parents' basement again and you're disconnected from everyone. And it's really hard to maintain connection when you're working in that environment. And so this is a place actually that we could use more of your help. We are beginning to think through a series of virtual events to build community in the school and to maintain community in the school, even if we're not allowed to be in the building. These are things like celebrations. These are things like what we're doing here, all hands school meetings, where we invite faculty, staff, and students together to have a conversation. We don't get to do that very often face to face because just getting everyone there is not possible. We also, of course, have our student center. And our student center was really ramping up with Michaela and Io leading the charge, I'd like to do more virtual events through the student center for academic preparation and career placement events, holding more professional webinars and seminars, doing homework together virtually. I thought that was a really good initiative that Michaela and Io invented. Even if we can't do it face-to-face, this is something that we can do in a robust way in person. So those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about. If you have ideas for virtual events that we can organize now to help that set of programs be more robust, we'd really appreciate it. And then finally, let me just talk about one last thing. We know that your plans for internships have disintegrated this summer, right? And that's not fun for anyone. We know that internships, though, are really important to your experience here. And so we're going to be working with employers on organizing virtual internships, so that even if we can't get together, and even if they're not allowed to be in person either, we can at least have a small set of internships available for students in the fall semester across the wide variety of industries that we are connected to, so that those kinds of internships are possible. As a first step, we're identifying right now companies that are doing virtual internships for our students right now. And we want to learn more about what they're doing and how they've set them up, and what we might do to help have more of those internships available to you. So that's the range of activities that the journalism school is engaging in to prepare for the fall semester. We're committed to giving you the most rigorous, in-depth experience we can, recognizing that there's a lot of uncertainty thrown into the mix, at least for the fall and maybe even for the spring. Given what I've described, I'd like to open the conversation now. We have, 40 minutes or so to have a conversation about additional things we ought to be thinking about to help our students, or issues that I haven't addressed that you're wondering about. And if we don't have the answer, I saw other faculty have connected, and they may be able to help me with answers as well as the staff. What are you thinking right now? Where is your head at? What kinds of issues are you thinking about for the fall semester? How can we be of help orienting you for August? You can, by the way, you can ask questions either in the chat box. I'm monitoring the chat box. You can raise your hand in the participant section, or of course you can just speak up. And I'm going to have a glass of water while you do it. Hi, Amanda. I haven't seen you in a while.
Hi.
So what can we do to help? What questions do you have for the fall semester that you're still wondering about I haven't addressed?
Well, like, I personally don't have any questions. I'm just here to listen.
Yeah. Are you feeling good about the fall semester? You feeling prepared?
For the most part, I do think so. It will be my last semester. And I have everything signed up. So like I'm going to be doing the, I'm blanking at the top of my head what I'm taking, but I'm taking a class with Brian Eckdale and Don McLeese.
Yep.
My last two journalism requirements.
Yep. Writing
And also,
classes and maybe a podcasting class, an audio class.
I'm doing it's a video production for
Social and mobile.
For social media. Yes.
Yeah. That's great.
Doing that, and I'm also doing an advanced feature story. That's what that one is with McLeese. I've never had him before, so that should be interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm also finishing up my writing certificate.
Yeah.
We'll be doing that capstone for the writing.
Well, graduating seniors have their own set of issues, as Michaela can tell you, and there might be other graduating seniors out there. We have a whole series of issues and questions for graduating seniors. The first thing we're doing is holding a panel discussion on Monday just for those students who are graduating this spring, because as you can imagine, they didn't expect that they were going to be going out into the job market in the midst of a pandemic. It's a story they'll be able to tell their grandchildren. And the other thing that we're doing is trying to leverage our alumni network to help these graduating seniors as much as we can. And we'll probably, this is the point I was going to make, Amanda, we'll probably keep that going in the fall, because it's not likely the economy is going to be normal anytime soon. So we'll likely want to continue that. Michaela, did you have your hand up?
No, I did the clapping reaction. I think
Oh,
Charlie
okay.
did it too.
Yep. I've given people, I went into my settings in Zoom and gave people more reactions that they can have. And so you can actually give me a thumbs down now. Anything I say that you disapprove of, you should let me know and give me a thumbs down so I can see that. Charlie, do you have a question?
Yes, actually. So, I'm a graduating senior, and, initially I was starting to look at, postgraduate full-time employment in Chicago at, a marketing or an advertising agency. But, now I'm really thinking about possibly just staying in Iowa City, working part-time, and continuing my education with one of the, possibly from Tippy, with one of those 5-year, the 5th-year
Absolutely.
MBA programs. So I was just wondering if you had any guidance in terms of, what you think students should do, especially graduating seniors who, are thinking about pursuing this as an option.
Well, others can chime in who know as much as I do about this. That's not staying in school during a turbulent economy is not a bad thing to do, and raising your skill set that way. And so if there are 4+1 programs that on campus and you have the resources to do it, of course, that is an option. I'd want to think about what skills you're adding and what specific skills you're adding in your case and how they help you achieve the immediate goals you may have when you get out of school. So you'd want to choose well, but in general, it's not a bad thing. Yeah, Melissa is saying, think about student debt.
That is a very good point indeed.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, one of the things you're going to learn about being an adult is, there's always a trade-off between time and money. Right? I mean, you never have enough of either, and they often pull against one another. And so if you're taking out significant student loans to do this, that's a conversation you got to have. By the way, I mean, I tell all students who come to me who are taking out student loans, you should have a firm sense of what the final number that is going to be for you in terms of the amount of loans you're going to have when you get out of school, and what that looks like for you on a month-to-month basis when you leave. I think that's really important. And so if you have that sense from your undergraduate experience, then you can figure out, well, it's going to cost me another $100 a month if I take out additional debt to do this master's degree. That's a case-by-case basis. But it's something that I think you should definitely look into. And I would actually talk to Anna about that before you leave. Anna may have something to say about it now, but just in terms of what kinds of skills you're adding to the journalism degree to make sure that it gives you the biggest boost possible, right? If you're going to make that choice, you might as well make it a good one.
Definitely. Thank you.
Kate has her hand up. Kate, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just found out where the hand was. You always confused me in the past because I didn't. Anyway.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now you know. There's a hand.
I'm not sure if you'll know about this, but how is the Daily Iowan operating? Because I wanted to apply for the summer and then move on and just continue to work there. But
yes,
I don't know what my summer plans are currently. But
I can speak to that if you want, or if someone else.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, definitely. So as of right now, we really don't know what the summer edition is going to look like. We've been continuing to publish online on a daily basis, and then we have a weekly print edition as well. Mm-hmm. But, I encourage you definitely to reach out to our summer editors, which are Caleb McCullough and Josie Fischels, who will be, taking over the reins from Marissa in a few weeks here. So I can definitely give you their contact information if you're interested in working at the DI over the summer.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, perfect. I'll just drop it. I'll drop it in a private message to you right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Yeah. And just to pull another plug in for the DI, that's always a great activity to participate in while you're here. So if you have the time and you have the inclination, participating in the DI is never a bad thing.
Can I jump in quick too about the DI? I'm on the DI board and we met last night, and Paul can jump in too if he has anything to say, but they are definitely, the summer, as Charlie said, is going, and the summer's already a different model. of fewer print publications, right? They switched the model a few years ago. So in many ways, the summer is actually more prepared for this current environment. But if you've been following the DI, they've been doing amazing work. Some might say the best work in the state. And so now would not be a bad time to get involved with what they're up to.
Perfect. Thank you, Melissa. That's exactly right.
I would advocate that
Yep.
whether you want to do news or public relations or any of the things that come out of Adler, spending time at the Daily Iowan is a really good platform to write a lot kind of thing. So take advantage of it. It's there to be used.
Yeah, I definitely plan to. Thank you.
And Becky is reminding you that we also have DITV, so anyone who's interested in the broadcast area. Yeah, so we also have a number of graduate students, and when I'm talking to students, I wanted to be inclusive of everyone, and so there may be questions from graduate students as well, and I see that Eric has his hand up.
Yeah, so I kind of have like a two-part question, I guess.
Yeah.
First part is mainly more so around like the communication aspect. So
Yep.
in the fall, so even when we're in classes and something does come up, maybe one of our classmates or students who might, inform us that they are, currently maybe testing, or there might be some contact tracing going on.
Yep.
Like, have there been talks of like how that communication might be disseminated of people, or like whoever might have like interacted with that person? And then along those lines, have there been discussion about best practices for supporting our classmates or students who come from particular communities that might be particularly impacted by the virus, as well as, when you think about the rise in, xenophobia around particular communities, things like that, how can we best support those communities?
Yeah, others may jump in here too. Those are both great questions. There's a safety committee on campus that is, and it's composed of all the experts. I mean, we're lucky in a way at Iowa that we have a very large medical campus and a lot of public health experts and a lot of epidemiologists. And so we have people who know what they're doing. And one of the things that safety committee is doing is exactly what you described, Eric, is figuring out how to trace outbreaks if we do have outbreaks, and how to communicate to people if you were exposed to an outbreak. And so I don't have any specific description of how that's going to happen, but I do know that that's an issue. My guess, one thing that I'm sure that they're going to do is hire people to be contact tracers, because that's what communities around the country are doing. Another thing that they may think about doing is trying to put something on your phones so that it'll be easy to communicate with people. There are privacy issues there and also cost about that, but those are the kinds of things they're thinking about. And you're absolutely right to remind us that although we're all experiencing a crisis, we're not all experiencing it the same, right? I mean, there's different communities are having a different experience of this crisis, and it's always important for us to be attentive to that and to remind ourselves of that. And that's another question that we haven't developed a specific set of responses to, but that we need to. And I'm going to put a reminder to myself to make sure that I do that. Yeah, I mean, you're right, it is. And if you have suggestions, and if others have suggestions for ways in which this is true and that we ought to respond, it's everything from people with young kids to race, socioeconomics. I mean, we're all experiencing a different crisis. If you have fewer resources and if you have more, it runs the gamut. So we need to be mindful of that and talk to people. Kaisa, do you have more to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to hop in, and I want to thank you, Eric, for bringing up that point. It's an extremely important one. And I know some of you have already reached out to me talking about experiences with xenophobia and prejudice on campus and in the community at large. Right now, because We're still working on solidifying better support systems. The best thing that you can do is use the reporting systems that we have. So reach out to me, reach out to David, reach out to Becky, reach out to somebody in our department, and we can very quickly activate the systems that we have in place to support you, to make sure that you're safe, and to make sure that you feel comfortable in wherever you're sheltering in place. So so know that you are supported. We do have those support systems in place right now and can activate them. So don't ever hesitate, even if it's, you know, a small question or a small concern. Let us know the second it happens, because we want to be here for you.
Thank you for that, Kaisa. That's absolutely right, and that's another issue that's reminding me of is mental health and well-being. We're all living through a very stressful time, and mental health and well-being of everyone in our building is actually a strategic priority of the school. And we have plans for how we might enhance mental health and well-being in the building, but we have not extended those plans out into what happens in the middle of a pandemic. So that's another area that we need to focus on. There's been a question about Adobe software suite, and Melissa has been working on that issue, and so maybe she could speak to what kinds of software are going to be available in the fall.
Yeah, hi everyone. So as you know, we got Adobe actually did this across the nation, I think. So Adobe gave free access to basically students at colleges that are already using the Adobe suite. So you probably realize in our labs we have it. Those are licenses that the journalism school pays for through STF, student technology fees. So the license that you all have right now is essentially like an offer that Adobe gave to everybody. So Mike, who's actually on, and I and other folks here are working on an STF proposal for to deal with some of the technology issues that David mentioned at the beginning. And one of the things we're putting in there is money to cover the fees for Adobe licenses for students next year if Adobe doesn't offer them for free again. So we don't know what's going to happen there, but that's part of the technology solutions that we're looking into, is could we cover those fees. I think, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, the normal license is $75 for students. So right now we have it in our labs. That's why we don't require you to purchase it, but we are looking into options as part of our broader technology solution. So right now you do have Adobe through July. So they may extend it, they may not, but we are working on that.
I know for a fact, because I've tried doing this before, for Adobe, they do have a students and teachers discount for like $20 a month for a year, but then after that, it bumps up to $30 a month after that. There is a discount, but it's still kind of spendy for those that don't want to pay that much a month for like editing software or Photoshop or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
was really helpful, because I'm like, for one of my assignments, I'm like, okay, yes, I have this, but the trial only lasts a week. I don't want to have to like open it up and be like, oh crap, I have to pay for this. I mean, obviously I would pay for it if I needed to, but if I don't have to pay for it, I don't want to.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that is something that we're definitely looking into. And we've made some serious pivots. So those of you who have taken multimedia or who are in it now, I can speak for that. We usually use Final Cut Pro, and we switched to Premiere because it was free for everybody. So that meant my TAs had to learn it. We all had to learn it, you know. But we're committed to making it as accessible as possible. So just know that we are working on that, and that is part of our broader plan.
Perfect.
Yep. Other issues or questions? This has been great so far, and I'm taking notes as we go along. You might hear me typing. I just want to make sure I capture everything that I'm hearing.
I'll just quickly say this.
Yep.
Quickly. So one of the things like Michaela and I try to do, like as peer mentors and stuff, is like try to help students in MMS or JRW, well, predominantly MMS, because you know you're learning the software and we already know how to use it, so we do offer help. And I've done Zoom sessions with some students, and I've just showed them the way around it. So I have sent emails multiple times, and I said, hey guys, if you guys need help with this, if you guys need to work with something, I'm definitely down to help you. I'm definitely down to work with you. I know it can be a little confusing the first 1 or 2 times you use it, but I can show you whenever you share your screen with me, or I share my screen with you, that this is how we can work through it together. So yeah, that option is like always there for students.
Thank you very much, Io. And thank you for pointing out that our peer mentors are a great resource for you in all sorts of ways. And if you have a question and you're not sure who to go to, they're definitely a great first stop. Either they can help you immediately, or they know exactly who to go to help you. And Io's point about JRW and MMS is a good one. I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to be putting faculty into groups of light classes to help them figure out how to create consistent experiences for students in those similar classes. And so the technology classes and the small writing classes. JRW and MMS are their own thing in our curriculum. They're so important to the foundation of what happens afterwards, that they are their own little group. You know, Lillian and Melissa have been working extremely hard to, well, first of all, they did an amazing job just to stand up those classes online, you know, in 2 weeks in the spring. And they're working very hard over the summer to make sure that those classes can function well in this more uncertain environment. So they will be ready to go in August. And it may require us, for instance, to do something like add more peer mentors to those classes in particular, to add additional support to those classes so that students have the help they need. Kate is asking a question. Kate, you have a question?
Yeah, this is just a quick one. Do you know how book return is going to happen this semester?
Book returns in terms of like your textbooks, or like library?
Like textbooks.
That's a good question. I don't know that. Does anyone else happen to know how that might work?
Did you rent it through like the Hawk Shop? I know that there was an email that sent out saying that the bookstore, they have specific instructions on how to return.
Okay, awesome. I must have missed that.
You might check with the bookshop, and I'm sure they have something like that. I mean, I think Eric is right.
If people are wondering about library books, so I know a slightly different issue, but I just saw something come through from the health sciences library that they're going to have locations across the state where people can drop off books and have them returned. So I'm guessing there may be something like that coming from the main library too.
Yep. That's very good. Thanks, Anna. There's that part, which is what do you do with the books you have? And then there's a second piece, which is how do you get the books you need in the fall? Our best guess is that we will start face-to-face in the fall. That seems to be a pretty consistent message. It may not be the normal way we do things in a fall semester, but they're committed to having everyone back in Iowa City. So that's probably what's going to happen. But if that doesn't happen, if something happens in the middle of that, we are going to have some systems in place to ensure that students can get the textbooks they need right at the beginning of class, so they're ready to be up and running right when the class starts. And this goes to Tessa's question, which is in the chat, which is when are they going to make these decisions so that everyone can prepare? Unfortunately, we don't know. They haven't not given us any sense of that. As you might imagine, these are not decisions that are made just for the University of Iowa alone. So even if the University of Iowa wanted to do a particular thing, it's not solely up to the university and upper level administrators in the university. These are regents kinds of decisions at the state level. They will even involve the governor and the legislature. And so and that's partly why it's taking so long to reach decisions. The other part being that the situation is so uncertain. My best guess is, though, that they will have to let faculty know something by the end of June. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for us to plan out exactly what we're going to do to start this semester. So I'm hopeful that we'll have an understanding, and you should be, this is another thing that we're going to have to do. We're going to set up a communication plan for our community so that we can get these messages out to you as quickly as possible. But you should be attending to your campus email as well, because a lot of this information will come out through campus email. So don't just let that email go dormant over the summer and don't look at it until August. You need to be referring to it. But we're going to create a communication plan to help get out the word, because these this information can come late. It can come in spurts. So my best guess is kind of the end of June. Other questions that you have or issues that you're dealing with that we can help right now? Are there any particular questions that the graduate students have? You know, they're having a slightly different experience, and Kaisa and I have been talking in the background about that. We're expecting to have a group meeting specifically for graduate students next week. Sometime it hasn't been scheduled yet, but beyond that meeting, if there are issues that you would like to address here, feel free to raise your questions. Michaela's right, stay on top of your email. So I'm assuming that all the students that are here are planning to be on campus in the fall. Would that be a fair assumption? Yeah. Regardless of whether they start face-to-face, they start online, we start in some hybrid model, you're committed to being back on campus?
Yep.
Yep. That's good to hear. I know the university is a little worried about that. We open up and 20% of the students don't show up. That's not going to be a good thing. No last questions? So Eric is asking how messaging will be sent to new students. That's a great question. And there is a two-part answer. For graduate students, Kaisa is working with the graduate college and talking to new students, as we speak. She's in constant communication with them. The university, of course, has a communication plan to students who have committed to the University of Iowa. On top of that plan, we have been working with the admissions office to stand up a set of messages we'd like to give to incoming journalism students. We're now at about 105 new freshmen who have committed to journalism coming in the fall, and there'll likely be close to 120 by the end of the summer as orientation takes place. They're not letting us communicate yet with those specific students because they're focused so much on communicating with all students. But there will be a messaging plan for new JMC students and a welcome. We need to develop this. We have rituals that we do to welcome them to the school in a face-to-face setting. We're going to have to develop analogs for the virtual setting just in case. While you're thinking about what to do this summer, you may not be able to work because there are no jobs and you're stuck at home, and we may be stuck at home for a while. One of the things you should know, and you probably do know this, even though you're not taking classes, you can enhance your skill set virtually by taking online classes through the University of Iowa. There's a tutorial system which you may have used in some of your classes called lynda.com. It's owned by LinkedIn, and it has a library of classes on everything from how to use Photoshop to how to use PowerPoint. And it's free. If you were on the street trying to use this material, you'd have to pay. But for University of Iowa faculty, staff, and students, it's free. And you can get access to it through the library. And so if you're stuck at home this summer and your internship fell through and you're still looking for a job because the one you had fell through, it's not a bad idea to spend some time learning one of those skills. You'll certainly learn many of them in class, but this is available to you and you might as well take advantage of it while you can. Kaisa has her hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a second to talk about the emergency fund as well. David,
Yep.
You reminded me, since some of us will be out of work this summer or had internships fall through, or just finding ourselves a little bit strapped for cash, the university has an emergency fund for all students, and that's what I want to emphasize here. There's also programming that the university can apply for money to support students in a number of ways. So I know that I've talked to a few students who've been worried that if they apply for that funding, they're taking it away from people who they might perceive are in more need. Try not to worry about that. Please apply for those funds. If you need the money, in addition to applying for the funds, get in touch with us. Again, use your networks because we can put you in touch with the right people in order to find the correct funding source. So please don't let this pandemic really, you're already extra stressed, but try not to let it keep you out of house and home. So let us know if you're encountering those problems too, because there are pots of money around the university that we can help you with.
Yep. Thank you for that. That's absolutely right.
Oh, sorry. I saw Tessa had a really good question in the comments that I didn't want us to miss about students who may not feel as comfortable coming back to campus but want to be enrolled in classes. And I wonder if you could address that, and also thinking about, I guess, attendance policies, because it may be that someone feels comfortable at one time during the semester but doesn't feel comfortable at another time, or, we might be dealing with, maybe different attitudes about when you can come to class if you have a little sniffle.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it applies not only to students, it also applies to faculty who may feel uncomfortable coming to campus, who may be health compromised in one way or another and just are really fearful of catching the virus. The university is creating policies that will devolve down from the university down to the college and down to the units about attendance. And I don't know what those policies will involve, but I think, Anna, that they'll do exactly what you described, which is they will describe a set of policies which allow us to be flexible and to, if students are health compromised or don't feel safe on campus, there will be opportunities to continue to persist in their coursework. And the same with faculty. They'll be able to do their jobs even if they can't be on campus. We don't have those policies yet, but my best, I know that they're working on it, and that that's another aspect that we're going to have to communicate to faculty, staff, and students when these policies are announced. Becky, you have your hand up?
I just wanted to make sure we pointed out Tessa's question like Anna just did, because that was a good question. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, it is a good question. And these are not going to be policies, by the way, which individual faculty or individual departments get to set. So it's not going to be up to the journalism school to make its own attendance policy. They're going to create universal policies that try to capture these issues. And so I know that's why I know that the upper level administration, HR, and other people are working on those exact policies. There's a real interesting question, an HR question about if faculty feel unsafe coming back to campus, can they just declare that they'd like to teach online? And that's got to be done at a university level. That's not something that units can do by happenstance. So they are working on that question. I sent around the lynda.com link. Melissa made a good suggestion as well. And I know that others have had speakers come into their classes. I had an alumnus come in to speak to my class yesterday, and she was reminding students of exactly what Melissa is suggesting, which is that if you want to be a professional communicator and certainly a professional journalist, there's always the opportunity to make pitches to local media, right? If you have a really good idea and you'd like to pursue it over the summer, you should absolutely pursue it. And if you're not quite sure how to make the pitch or how to frame it, our faculty, even though we go away in the summer, they will absolutely be available to you. We can connect you to the right person to help you do that. The same is true, by the way, on the public relations side. My guest speaker was suggesting that if you're interested, you could call up a local business and ask to attend to their social media feeds for a month. And my best guess is that they would be grateful for the help, right? So these are things that you can do if you take the initiative. Melissa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I am not in the business of ever telling people to do free work, and I especially wouldn't be doing that right now. So keep that in mind, of course, as you're thinking about these opportunities. There is paid work right now, though. So for example, to David's point about professionals, I had Zach Kucharski from the Gazette in my class the other day, and he was talking about they are still sending reporters out, of course, to do work, but they're restricted. They can't travel, they can't leave the state, so they can't even go to certain parts of the state. Yep. So if you live in a part of Iowa that the Gazette would normally cover and they can't get there, and you pitch them a good story, they are more likely now than maybe even at other times to take that story, and they should pay you for it. So really be thinking, wherever you live, your local media are also strapped. Like the Gazette's a reporter who covers the government in Des Moines, he's immunocompromised, so he can't go, to some of these things. So there are places and spaces where there wouldn't normally be opportunity that you could get paid work. So I would think about that if in your community that might exist as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Melissa. That's absolutely right. We're coming down to our time. And so are there any final questions before we sign off?
If I could just jump in for a second.
Yes, Paul.
To lever on Michaela's point, don't tune out to your email. Mm-hmm. Don't tune out to the emails that I send out. I visited with a student this week that had her internship canceled, and then they called back and said, "Oh, we're going to put it back on, and we're paying." So, stay tuned. Yep. I've seen so many companies in the past that came up to last-minute needs, and so there will be opportunities. We just can't forecast what they're going to be.
That's great. Thank you for reinforcing that thought. So I want to thank everyone for coming. I want you to know that we're here from you, from our peer mentors to our staff, Becky and Jamie and Anna and others, to our leadership in the school, Kaisa, Melissa, me. You may not know who to go to when you have a question or an issue. Go to any of us. And we will, if we don't know the answer, we'll find the answer. If we don't know what particularly where that resource might be, we'll find out where that resource is. And so, we're here to help you succeed. That's our job. And we take it seriously. And we know that this is a very uncertain time. It's no one in living memory has had anything happen like this. And so, we feel strongly that we're here to help you, and we want to do that. And so reach out as much as you need to over the next couple of months as we're getting ready to hopefully see one another again in August. Okay. Anyone else have a final thought before we leave? All right. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. And again, reach out when you need it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Bye-bye. Bye, Sam.
Thank you.